Today on the 10-12 podcast, myself and Andy Mitz are joined by Adam Eaton of Sons of UCF to discuss the UCF football head coach opening. Plus, we talk West Virginia firing Neil Brown, what's the future for Cincinnati and Oklahoma State, and of course, the Arizona State-Iowa State Big 12 title game matchup, and again, why pricking the Big 12 in the preseason is an absolute gamble.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the 10-12, the podcast that covers all 16 teams in the Big 12 Conference. We are the flagship show, the 10-12 Network. Find every show on the network at 1012network.com. And of course, we are partners with Sports Social, Europe's biggest sports podcast network. I'm your host, Phillip, Slavin. Thank you for joining us as we recap Week 14. A little bit different than usual. Okay, we're not going through every game. I'm sorry. I know that if that's what you were hoping, we're not going to do that today. There's less need than normal to do so. And I say we, as he is here every week. He is the voice of the Rock Chalk podcast, our blue and red lensed, Jayhawk biased,
crimson and blue, but
BFF,
yes.
Andy Mitz.
Yeah, no, look, what I've come to realize is that one of the Kansas teams has to let me down every single weekend. And unfortunately, this weekend, it happened to be the Kansas football team. So I'm glad that we don't have that one on the docket as one that we really need to break down, because I'm not really in the mood for it right now. I already have to do enough of that on my own podcast. So we can just leave it there.
Look, you first team with a losing record to knock off 3 straight AP top 25 opponents.
Well, the only thing I will say is that I did say on this podcast when I predicted that they were going to go bowling, that it would be the ultimate Kansas football moment for them to knock off all of the ranked teams ahead of them and then lose to Baylor to end the season. And hey, look what they did.
The at the time best team in the Big 12 facing off with the at the time best team in the Big 12 was a perfect way to end the season for both teams. Also joining us today, for no reason other than just because it seemed like a good idea to bring him on, is our good friend Adam Eaton of Sons of UCF. Adam, welcome back to the show, man.
Thanks, gentlemen. You guys were talking about best team in the Big 12. I can't relate. What's that about? I don't know what that means.
I mean, well, it depends.
No, I cover UCF, so I don't even know what.
Yeah, I was going to find
out. What we're talking about is when your basketball team gets a huge upset at home.
Okay, good. Yeah. Then we are all in here in Orlando.
Let's see. Is UCF going to volley? Does UCF play volleyball?
No, they did not. Actually, today they fired their coach as well, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Well, that's actually why you're here, is to talk about the coaching change at UCF.
Yes.
What I forgot to say, I said coaching change at UCF. I meant to say at volleyball.
For sure.
Not right.
Exactly.
That what brought you in here. We've got a few things to get to. We'll talk about coaching changes here in a second, but let's start off with the Big 12 championship game is set, and it's the most Big 12 championship game you could possibly have. And while people look at their audio or just out into the distant side eye and go, wait a minute, it's Iowa State and Arizona State, who was in the Pac-12 last year, so how is that a very Big 12 title game? You must be new here. When I say it's the most Big 12 title game possible, it's because it's Iowa State and a team that was picked last in the preseason poll in Arlington. That is the most Big 12 title game since this thing came back in 2017.
Right. It's literally the, if you come into it at the beginning of the season, probably the least possible thing that it looked like that we would get in Arlington. I mean, just, with the idea of Arizona State being the one to make it, because everybody was, extremely curious about what this team was going to be. So
it's literally the reverse order. If you look at it, it's literally reverse of probably what we thought heading into it, with Oklahoma State, Utah, being top teams, and obviously Arizona State being in the bottom team. It's literally like someone just hit the boggle button on the old board game and just mixed everything up. And here's what we got.
So you say that. I'm going to read you the current standings, but I'm going to read it by where they were picked preseason. So everybody just follow along here. We're going to go 1 through 16, but I'm going to give you this order with their preseason pick. 16, 6, 13, 11, 12, 10, 9, 2. That's the top half of the conference standings. Bottom half of the conference standings from 9 through 16 is 7, 4, 14, 15, 1, 5, 8, 3. That is, I've maybe you're new here. Maybe this is your first time you're listening to this podcast. If so, welcome. Every podcast is someone's first. As we said throughout the offseason, trying to pick the Big 12 in the preseason is an absolute crapshoot. It is spin the wheel, and wherever you land, congratulations, you might have a winner. There is no way to predict a conference that is as volatile as this one, that is as hard to predict because it is so much about development cycles and things that you're only going to know if you're around the team. And even then, it's hard to know because there's so little access. And now you have a 16-team conference. It's massive. With 4 teams in their second year, 4 teams in their first year. You just had no way to know. There's somebody tried to call us and Locked On and Heartland out of like, none of you gonna admit that you got your preseason picks wrong? It's like, no one. One person, show me, honest to God, with the date stamp on it, that you picked Arizona State and Iowa State to be in the Big 12 championship game. If you can prove that to me, email us 1012podcast@gmail.com. 1012 Network DMs are open. We're on Threads at 1012 Network. We're on Blue Sky on 1012 Network. Threads on 1012 Pod. Instagram on 1012 Pod. Send me the screenshot with the timestamp that proves that you made this before the season. I'll send you a koozie. I'll send you a sticker, and I'll send you some Charlie Hustle gear. And as soon as I print the 1012 Network hats that I'm planning to make, I'll send you one of those too. I'll send it to you. You show up. Prove me.
No, I mean, look, this is the closest real life equivalent to playing roulette, right? Is picking the Big 12. Like literally you have no idea where it's going to go. It could be any number of different things. And, you might have some strategies that you think are going to, win you some money and get you on the right side more often than not. But guess what? The house always wins, and there's always the risk that everything's going to go horribly wrong and you're going to look like an idiot, even if your, thought process was sound.
It's also college football 2024, right? Where transfer portal is spread out talent across a bunch of different schools. I don't think there's a dominant team this year, right? Like there's a bunch of teams that are good, but there's somebody who's dominant across the board. I don't think any week that you look at a matchup and say there's no chance that team B can't beat team A. We just saw Michigan go into Ohio State and win a game that pretty much nobody thought they could do, right? So I don't think there's a dominant team out there. So to look at the Big 12 and say, I think this is your dominant team, and you said it earlier, Phillip, so many people are changing hands, so many people are moving things around, new players coming in that you don't get a chance to watch, view, assess, know how they fit in the scheme. I think for every conference, it's a bit of a coin flip every year. And I think the Big 12, just because of all the newness you talked about, Phillip, I think that actually lends to that too. So to your point, if I'll throw in a sunset, if someone's got Iowa State, Arizona State, and screenshots that, I'll throw in a sunset, because I think with today's 2024 college football, to find to be able to pick that off the top is just remarkable, and or you're the luckiest person on earth, and or you're lying through your teeth. What are the three?
Well, but it's also, this is the Big 12. Like SEC, you know who the good teams are, right? Big 10, you know who the good teams are. ACC, for the most part, sometimes we get some weird stuff that happens, but this is the Big 12. It's always been weird. Since the title game came back, it's been weird. And so it's not shocking to me that in the final standings, only 2 teams who were picked to finish in the top half of the standings finished in the top half. Kansas State was preseason pick 2. They finished 8th. Iowa State was preseason pick 6th. They finished 2nd. It's just we all got this unquestionably wrong. And everyone did. And so it's fine. Like, this is just what this conference is. And it's got to give you, it's fun for the Big 12. Like, I love this. It's one of the reasons, like, I just fall in love with this conference more and more and more, because there's, like, Arizona State, second-year head coach, first year in a new conference. We just had no idea with them. And they got better and better and better. And one of the reasons that they're here right now is this team got better as the season progressed. Like, this team has continued to develop. I mean, like 4 or 5 weeks ago, I thought I had a hot take when I was like, Arizona State's going to be a sneaky, like, dark horse favorite for Big 12 title next year. And here they are sitting in the title game now. Like, this is how this conference works. And it's fun. It's fun because you just don't know. You just don't know. And I love this matchup. I think this is so much fun. It's not a rematch. We get two teams who haven't faced off yet in Iowa State and Arizona State. This is a battle of two teams with solid quarterback play, fun running backs, good defenses. Like these are two solid teams that I am very excited to watch play in Arlington. Mind you, a team from Arizona and a team from the state of Iowa are going to be playing for a conference championship game in the state of Texas. This is the Big 12 conference. This is modern college.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds
This is
normal.
how things work. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
No, like, I mean, let's also be honest, right? With so much change in this conference, like we all knew it was going to be difficult to figure out what, I think that we have seen this with every other conference that's had significant changes like this, is that it takes a little while for things to settle, for that quote unquote natural hierarchy to kind of establish itself, and for, programs to build any sort of momentum in their new conference. And so even though half the conference are, teams that have been here for quite a long time, that's still half the conference that's, just a couple years in the conference at most, which means that there's still a lot of settling, a lot of kind of jockeying for position, and a lot of different stuff that has to happen. So, yeah, I mean, Arizona State is favored as of right now for this game, and rightfully so. I mean, the way that they've been playing, they're probably the hottest team, even taking into account Baylor, who has won 6 straight. Like, Arizona State's still the hottest team right now in the Big 12, considering the level of competition that they've played and how well they've actually played against them. So, yeah, no one could have expected it, but I also think that nobody expected a lot of the way that different players have played, the way that things have meshed. I mean, you can look up and down every single team in this conference, and you can look, across most of college football, and point to at least 2 things that were wildly different than the expectations coming into the year. And that's what makes the sport so volatile. And honestly, I think that's what makes the sport so much more fun than even like the NFL, because the NFL, you generally have an idea of which teams are going to be good. You get some surprises here and there, but for the most part, you've got professionals that have been there for a really long time, or, guys that are moving from one team to another, and, addressing free agent stuff and all of that. Here in college, it's absolute chaos. And knowing what this team or what this conference is going to be in the next few years, if anyone tells you that they know what's going to happen, they're lying to you, or they are absolutely crazy. Look, I like to predict as much as the next person, and I am fully willing to admit that I have, most of the time, I don't know I can't say with any confidence that, hey, this is definitely what's going to happen. I'd be like, I think this is what's going to happen. This has a good chance of happening. But I also know that I'm most likely wrong, because there are just so many possibilities that are actually decent possibilities.
Yeah, I'll say to your point earlier, Phillip, being kind of the newbie to the conference, right? UCF only been here 2 years. It's been a blast watching these games on Saturday, right? Not watching UCF, that has not been a blast, but watching every other game has been a blast, because I don't know who's good. I don't know who's gonna. I look at the game like, oh yeah, fair, this should be an easy one for X team, right? And then something kind of unique and crazy happens. So I have enjoyed the 2-year stretch so far. But I think to what Andy was saying, you got to tip your cap a little bit to Kenny Dillingham, right? Because I think, Phillip, you and I did the show preseason around ranked the Big 12 coaches, and I don't think he got past 14 on our list. I don't even remember where he was. 15, 16. I think he was in that lower tier. He was in the sort of the Brett Brennan quartile there, which is not a quartile you want to be in. And so for him to take this team, turn it around with a new quarterback, Cam Scatterbo, obviously a tremendous running back. I think a lot of schools right now are looking at their team, looking at their model, i.e. a UCF, i.e. West Virginia, which we'll talk about in a second. You're looking at Kenny Dillingham around, can I get a young coach who understands NIL, who embraces opportunities, embraces change, has good offensive system, good leader of men. I think that's the model you're going to start to look at around coaches. Now you're seeing older coaches, Mac Brown, Gus Malzahn, say, I want no part of this anymore. But you've got Kenny Dillingham at a press conference saying, by the way, my running back should get an NIL deal. Or, hey, my quarterback needs a new motor. Anybody got a car dealership that wants to help him out? You're not seeing that on Mac Brown. All respect to Mac Brown. He's not doing that. So I think you're looking at Arizona State and the model they've built this year. And I think this could be something that schools are looking at and saying, okay, we need to tap into that. So hats off to Kenny Dillingham and what he's done at Arizona State, because I think it certainly is something that you'll see a lot of schools maybe think about replicating here this offseason.
Okay, a couple of, or at least one in particular, current Big 12 head coach, you could take some notes. I put out what I think is a little bit of I want to say hot take on all the social platforms. So I'll ask you guys this. Look, we're going to get preseason, or we'll get the all Big 12 teams coming up here. I think, is it this week or next week? I don't remember. It doesn't really matter. I get that Shedeur Sanders is probably going to be the first team guy with what they did at Colorado and how much credit he and Travis Hunter are going to get for that. And I think Travis Hunter's probably like, how do you pick him player of the year, offensive player of the year, or defensive player? It can't be offense. It's got to be defense. I don't even know. I don't know how you decide with him. I want to make the case that I actually think that, and maybe it's based off of preseason expectations, but Sam Leavitt to me should be the first team All Big 12 guy. Not only did he lead his team to the conference championship game, and I think he's probably not going to get it because he isn't going to have the stats that Shedeur did, and a lot of credit's going to go to Cam Scadaboo because of how much he did, especially in the first half of the season. But the back half of the season, as this team has gotten better, it's not been a team who's gotten here because of Cam Scadaboo. It's because of how good Sam Leavitt has been. And Parker Fleming has posted the stat numerous times throughout the season, and I always retweet it with the same thing every time. But because Sam Leavitt leads the Big 12 in quarterbacks with the most drops and has been number 2 nationally for weeks in most drops, and they're still here. Like, that's how good he has been and how much better he could have been and how much better that team could have been if they had a really good wide receiving core. Because here's the deal, guys. Name a receiver at Arizona State right now.
Tyson?
I can't.
Is there a Tyson guy?
Like the chicken company? Maybe. I follow this conference and I can't. And I don't mean that as an insult to the wide receivers. And look, again, it's 16 teams. I'm doing my best here. But like, we can think of wide receivers from a lot of different teams. There's not going to be a first team wide receiver from Arizona State. There's not going to be a second team wide receiver from Arizona State.
By the way, yes, you're right. Jordan Tyson is their leading wide receiver. So.
There you go. There we go, Adam. But like,
I only know that because he got hurt on Saturday. I think he was walking off the field like a sling or something. That's the only reason I remember that. And he carved UCF, but that's not hard to do.
But anybody going to put him on a first or second team based off of what we think for these players? That he's been able to do this. He doesn't have a Travis Hunter. Like, Colorado's wide receiving core is superior to Arizona State's. I'm going to put that there right now. Arizona State fans can argue. But this is, all of these things I'm saying is not to discredit the wide receiving core, not to discredit Arizona State. It's to give a ton of credit to Sam Leavitt for how good he has actually been. And yes, some of that is based off of our low preseason expectations, but he's been really, really good. I bet Michigan State wishes they still had him on their roster this season. And again, he's a redshirt freshman this year, sophomore. Like,
yeah,
he is a big part in the defense, and first half's Cam Scadaboo. But I would put him first team All Big 12 quarterback. And if he's not first team, he's second team, and I don't want to hear an argument for anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, no, actually, it looks like Sam Leavitt's a well, yeah, so he would be redshirt freshman.
Redshirt freshman, because he played like 3 or 4 games last year for Michigan State.
But yeah. So I mean, really, what it really comes down to is just the fact, like, you look across the rest of the teams and look at their quarterbacks, the ones that are, up at the top, like Shedeur Sanders, I think, is the only other guy who has been playing really well. But I think Shedeur Sanders also, like, they're two completely conflicting styles of quarterbacks, right? Where Sam Leavitt is the guy that you can trust him to not do something that is going to lose you the game. Whereas Shedeur Sanders, he can go out and he can make some fantastic plays that can win you the game. But he also has several instances where he has thrown a bad pass, done something that he shouldn't have done, taken a horrible sack. Like, you can find plenty of examples of Shedeur Sanders making a play, just against Kansas. He had several plays where he held onto the ball too long. He did something he shouldn't have done that killed any opportunity they had to finish a comeback there. And so you can't say the same thing about Sam Leavitt. If Arizona State gets beat, it's not because Sam Leavitt did something wrong. It's because the other team just outplayed them over the course of the entire game. So, yeah, I agree. I'm like, I don't think it's anyone other than those two. Like, I'm having I don't think it's possible to make a case. Like, you could try to make a case for like a Retzloff, but I think the general thought process, especially in the last couple of weeks as he's kind of fallen off a little bit. But like before that, the thought process could have been, well, he's the perfect game manager doing what they need to do and directing everything. I think similar to what Sam Leavitt, the accolades that he's going to get or the consideration that he's going to get. But you look across the rest, like Rocco Becht, yeah, Iowa State's here, but Iowa State fans will be the first to tell you that Rocco Becht drives them crazy with the way that he plays the quarterback position sometimes. So, yeah, I mean, I just don't feel like anyone else has a legitimate argument. And I agree. Like, if you're looking for the most consistent player, I think it's been Sam Leavitt. If you're looking for the guy that has the most upside, it's probably Shedeur Sanders. And unfortunately, I think in the voting, they're probably going to go for that massive upside as opposed to the guy that has been more consistent and probably been a better rock for his team.
Yeah, I agree. I think those are the two who are going to be on the team picture, if you will. But there's not a chance in hell Shedeur doesn't win this thing. I think people are going to look at the stats, right? He's thrown almost twice as many passes as Sam Leavitt, 35 touchdown passes. I think Sam has 21, and so they're going to look at the stats and they're going to look at his name and they're going to vote him. Maybe unanimous? Does Sam even sneak a vote? But I don't agree. I don't disagree with you, Philip, that the team picture is probably those two and then everybody else.
And by the way, Kenny Dillingham's going to win Big 12 Coach of the Year, and he should.
Yes.
When you're picked preseason 16,
Yes.
you're winning coach, and you get to the championship game, you're winning coach. A couple other notes. Chris Cartman shared this one on Twitter a few days ago. Dillingham on Saturday earned a $200,000 bonus for hitting 9 wins. He on Monday, that was on Saturday. On Monday, he told 20 off the field staffers that they'll get a $5,000 to $10,000 bonus. He's paying those bonuses for them. He's paying those extra bonuses from his bonus he got. Now, granted, he's going to get even more money because of where they are right now, but I don't care. Like, he's getting a $300,000 bonus for the 10th regular season win, $395,000 bonus for making the Big 12 title game. He'll earn another. He would make another $395,000 if they win the Big 12 title, and another like $800 if they make the playoff. So he's going to get some more money, but I don't care. Like, the stuff he says in press conferences, the stuff how he talks about NIL, how he talks about his players, the stuff he's doing for his staff. This is Arizona State. Pay that man his money and don't let him leave. Do not let him leave, because places are going to come and call it. They are.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah.
All right. I'll use this to transition. We got a few things I want to transition off to. Iowa State and Arizona State are in the Big 12 title game, as we discussed. Can you name the team that beat both of them?
I mean,
I'll give you a hint. They fired their defensive coordinator and their defensive passing
Texas Tech.
game. Okay. Correct.
That's
Joy
crazy.
McGuire was asked about this, quote, "I'm going to have a lot of sleepless nights. We beat both of them, but they did a better job of taking advantage of some of their opportunities to be able to play in that game." When asked about that, as I mentioned, Texas Tech has fired defensive coordinator Tim DeRuyter and fired their defensive passing game coordinator. I don't know. It's some, you get these weird titles, which is pay bump. So I know the general consensus among Texas Tech fans is it feels like it's a little bit of a sacrificial lamb situation. There are a lot of issues and injuries and other things. And yes, they had a lot of issues and injuries, but also when you have one of the worst defenses in the country and you have a team that could have potentially been here had your defense been, 20 spots better in the rankings, it's a move that makes sense. Purdue fired Ryan Walters, Texas Tech. Go pay him a lot of money. Speaking of firings, Adam is here, so we have to talk about this. UCF is open. UCF is now, I believe, the second Power 5 job that has officially become open behind North Carolina. Obviously, Purdue is now open, and we'll talk about West Virginia here a little bit in just a minute. Gus Malzahn leaving to become the offensive coordinator at Florida State, not going to even have to leave the state for his new job. News came down on Sunday. Was it Sunday or Saturday? Saturday. They came down Saturday, not long after the home loss to Utah. Adam, I'm going to let you share your thoughts here in a second, but my read on this is this. Based off the timing of this announcement, and honestly throwing in the way UCF played in that season finale against Utah, this isn't some, I thought I saw someone go like, this is a terrible look for UCF to lose their head coach as an offensive coordinator position. And I was like, nah, this was a mutually decided. This is a mutual decision between both the school and the coach, to me, that had probably already been decided before Friday's game, that allows Gus to have a soft landing with no big fight, no firing, none of that stuff. He gets to go save face a little bit and take a job, and UCF gets to move in a different direction after two very disappointing seasons to start off Big 12 play, matched with some good seasons in the AAC, but not incredible seasons. Is that fair, Adam?
Yeah, look, I think the frustration's been mounting on all sides for the past month, right? The UCO has been on a slide. It hasn't been pretty. And so I think frustration's been mounting for a few months. For anybody who watches Gus Malzahn press conferences, and God love you if you do, by the way, because it's a hard act to follow. You'll notice over the last couple of months, he's been noticeably more frustrated in general. His energy's been really low. He's lamented several times about what he calls this new age of college football and NAL and reporting and recruiting. And we all took that as UCF media as a signal that perhaps that meant Gus Malzahn was going to retire. But I think what he was really telling us is, I don't want to do all the other stuff. When we hired Gus Malzahn at UCF, the first thing he said in the press conference is, I'm a play caller. I've called plays my entire life. That's what I'm going to do. So I see this, to your point, Phillip, as a move where he said, it's not going well here. They don't really want me. I don't really want to be here. It's not working out for me at this point. UCF is going to have a massive rebuild in 2025 with or without Gus. And I think he knew that coming into it. Was he up for the long haul? And the end of the day, he's 59 years old, about to be 60. I think he just wants to be a ball coach and call plays and run offense. And he knew UCF was not going to work out. He knew things were going in a direction there. He used to work with Mike Norvell. They're very close. And so I think he made a phone call to his friend and said, hey, you got an opening. I got some interest. To your point, Phillip, let's work this out. I think the details were already kind of, loosely in place before the game against Utah. And look, I think if UCF blows Utah out, maybe we pump the brakes on that a little bit and you change course. But to lose the way they did, playing three quarterbacks, not having success with any of them, it's the microcosm of the Gus era at UCF. And I think that was the kind of the final straw where all sides said, hey, this is not working out. Let's part as friends. Now, what's interesting is Gus Malzahn's not a stupid person by any stretch. His agent, and you guys both know this, is Jimmy Sexton, who does not make a living off of giving any money back to anybody ever. Gus was owed $12 million on a buyout if he got fired from UCF. And allegedly he resigns and no money changes hands. That is just mind-boggling to me. So either something happened behind the scenes where maybe a little money was given here and there. FSU would owe UCF money for hiring Gus. Apparently UCF has waived that requirement. So there's something going on behind the scenes, Philip, I think that pretends to this being an orchestrated event. Well, we may never know the specifics, but I don't take this as a shock that Gus woke up on Saturday and said, you know what? Tallahassee's nice this time of year. I think I'm going to head up north and see if I can call some plays. I think this has been in the works for a while. I think it was just a matter of where was his landing spot. I think he found a friendly voice in Mike Norvell, an opportunity to go back and call plays and get back to, as Gus would say, his roots. And I think that allows him to land safely. UCF now in the market for a new head coach.
Yeah, I mean, I think really what this comes down to, and the way that it reads, just given the way that I've been involved in some of these things at Kansas in the past, is it feels like there was a lot of donor interest in moving on to somebody who is going to they'd be able to work with a little bit better for NIL and other things like that. It just felt like Malzahn that's always been his thing, right? He's a great X's and O's coach. That's, why he was successful with the way he was at Auburn. That's why he was successful in the American and getting them, to the Big 12. And this feels a lot like a Dana Holgorsen situation where, huge kudos for putting the program in the right position it needed to be able to make it to a power conference. But the way that his style is set up isn't necessarily the right fit for a program that's transitioning to a power conference. If he came into a place where they were already established, they had a huge NIL program already set up, and he was basically coming in to just kind of run the ship and be the CEO and be a play caller, yeah, I think it would make sense. But he's having to build all that stuff at UCF, and it's just not his wheelhouse at all. I mean, kudos to him for recognizing what it is that he does well, for finding a good way to kind of get out and not making it adversarial because it's positioned as, oh, this is a demotion. This is, you stepping down. It's hey, this is going to be the best for me. This is going to be the best for you guys. Let's just get this done. Everyone can move on, and then we don't have to be talking about this anymore.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that, Andy. I think what I would tell you is, and I know Tennessee fans don't want to hear this, so I apologize in advance to Tennessee fans, but UCF's backslide was starting as Josh Heupel was leaving. Let's be honest. UCF had gone 6-4 in that COVID year. A lot of recruits were bailing out of UCF. I think they were barely top 75 recruiting classes. Things were trending down for UCF with Heupel there, and then he leaves to Tennessee. And I think Gus came in and essentially he didn't come into a really good situation, for being honest. He had a chance to rebuild. And I think his fatal flaw is really two things. One, he really just tried to build quickly through the portal because, to your point, Andy, I don't think he's used to the building process. I don't think he's comfortable in that space. He's comfortable with, I got my horses, I'm going to go play, I want to go win. And I think he tried to fill a lot of gaps and try to cover a lot of holes with the program by going to the portal, getting all these sexy names from all these schools that, frankly, didn't really pan out much for UCF, right? So I don't think he ever built it. I think he was just trying to like put some band-aids on some gaping holes, and it essentially became whack-a-mole, right? Something else
Well,
would
and
pop up.
and when he was at Auburn, right, and being successful at Auburn, all that stuff was done behind the scenes, like by people that you don't want to know who they are because it's against the rules. Now that it's all kind of allowed and things that you have to build in your program, the head coach has to be a lot more involved in that sort of stuff than he ever used to be. And so, like, I don't think it's a criticism to say that's just not what he's good at. He came up and was very successful in a time where that just was not the requirement of a head coach of a Power Five school. And so the fact that he is able to recognize that the UCF now has an opportunity to find somebody who can build in that fashion gives them the best opportunity moving forward. And it allows Gus to go do what it is that he likes to do.
It'd be interesting though, Andy. I mean, Florida State did not have a good year, 2-10. Mike Novell, I mean, he has a massive buyout, but I mean that seat has got to be pretty hot, right? So Gus may only be one and done at FSU, right? If they can't win next year, there's no guarantee that Norvell.
No, and
there,
that's
right?
true,
So,
but I also think that the vast majority of the criticism towards FSU was execution and like coaching on the field. Like it was a lot of it was kind of the stuff that you expect somebody who knows how to coach and knows how to put people in good positions once they're on the field. Like he probably could have a good impact. It may not be enough still. There just may be too many bridges burned for Mike Norvell, but he's bound to be, I think, more successful there than trying to build a program like he would have to do at UCF.
yeah, it's the Chip Kelly route, right? I think we may see this more and more in college sports these days, right? Where coaches are leaving to kind of give up the big seat, if you will, to just go and coach and do what they want to do. And I think for UCF, it's a great reset button. We'll see where they go from here. A lot of names out there, a lot of people talking about some stuff. Really tight-lipped right now from the searching perspective. You know, there's some hot candidates out there, but you know, I think you said it, Phillip. Not a lot of P4 jobs open, so you'd think UCF would have the ability to at least make some calls, have some people tell them no. And hopefully that's what's going on right now, but still pretty tight-lipped in terms of what's next for UCF.
The expectation for this offseason for some time has been it's going to be a lighter cycle.
Yeah.
Two reasons. One, you had such a bombastic one last year with Saban and Harbaugh leaving and the impact that had across college football. And two, with so many questions about what schools are going to have to do in the next 12 to 24 months in regards to paying players, them becoming employees, in regards to the house settlement. Schools are a little hesitant to want to spend a lot of money to remove head coaches that might need to be spent elsewhere. And yes, we're talking about donor money being spent to remove coaches, but that's still donor money that could be spent in other places like paying players, right? If they become employees. So there's a lot of questions. So in a lighter cycle like this, it does benefit UCF with its North Carolina, them, Purdue, and West Virginia right now. More jobs are likely to come open. We don't know what those will be, but we're not expecting some of the USC's, LSU's, Alabama's, things like that. So that does offer UFC an opportunity. Adam, this is not a like, who are you hearing? You mentioned everyone's really tight-lipped, but is there a name atop your list? Who would, if you were the athletic director for UCF and they went, all right, Adam, who's at the top of you? Because every good AD has a list of 3 or 4 names, right? Who's on your list right now?
I think the name you're hearing a little bit, who I'd be really interested in, is John Summerall from Tulane, a guy who's coached, who's won at different places, had 1 year at Tulane. Now you can argue those are Willie Fritz prayers. I don't really care, but I think John. I know that argument's being made. I don't know that I buy in that either, but I think John Summerall is a name that I like a lot. I think you also have to go dark horse. There's another name, G.J. Kinney, who's at Texas State as a head coach. He was at UCF in 2021 as OC. There's some ties there. I think my dark horse, and Andy may know this, but Terry Mohajir, the athletic director, comes from Kansas, has Kansas ties. He's been somebody who's around Kansas, right? I think if you're Terry, I'm surprised he doesn't make a call up to College Station and talk to Andy Koltnicki at Penn State. I think he runs a good offense. I think he's got the ability to maybe run a program. I think that may be a name we're not hearing a lot of, but you just have to kind of look at the ties at this point. And I see Terry's tie to Kansas, and obviously Andy's time at Kansas. I wonder if that's the way he goes. But if you gave me Koltnicki or you gave me Summerall, I'd be good with either of those.
Yeah, I would say someone else who was also getting some early pub for West Virginia potentially would be Jeff Monken. I think he's a guy that, again, he plays at a system that is a lot different than than what you've seen elsewhere. But I think as we're seeing with Willie Fritz, making some strides and obviously having some issues to start with, but that's normal, in year one. I think Monken has also kind of been that guy that a lot of people have looked at. I'm just waiting for somebody to go ahead and go ahead and actually pull the trigger on that and actually get them to where they need to be. So, or to actually bring Monken in. So I'm not really sure if they're going to do that, but I feel like Monken's going to get a job here somewhere. I think it would make sense at UCF, especially since the way for UCF to be successful sooner rather than later is to do something different than what the rest of the conference is doing. I just don't know if they're going to be willing to do that, but that is a name that I probably would keep on the list.
All right, so I'll respond to a few things. One, on Summerall, yes. The question for Summerall is going to be, is he going to wait around for an SEC job?
Sure. Yep.
Right. He's an SEC guy. He took over a good Tulane. You did not take over last year's roster. He did not take over last year's roster. This was a different roster. What he did is on him. Okay. And also he took over a Troy program that had a long history of success and was down in the dumps and went 23-4 in 2 seasons. It's part of why he went to the Tulane job and to an upcrease in budget and opportunity. Finished second this year in the AAC. Will play in the AAC title game. Like, that is a name that you need to keep an eye on. And I think that would be a huge win for UCF if they could get John Summerall. Or is he going to wait and take his time? I think it's getting harder and harder for SEC schools to hire Sunbelt schools, no matter how good they are, because you see what's happening with Florida, even though I think they've had a better than expected season. I love GJ Kinney. Stay away. I need him to stay at Texas State until Gundy finally retires so OSU can hire him. But yeah, I think you got to be excited about what he's doing. And with Baylor not opening this offseason, that would have been the job that I would have earmarked him for, but Aranda's sticking around, so I think he's back in Texas State for another season. On Monken and Army, everything I've heard about Monken is this. They tried to get away some from just doing the military triple, and it didn't go so well, and so they went back to it because that's what you have to do at academies. You have to run the triple. It is a matter of this is what you have to do to have success at these programs because it's so ingrained in who they are and how you recruit. He does not want to just run the triple. He does not want to just be I'm going to run academy triple coach. That was part of the pitch at Army. Or at Kansas. It's just once you say head coach from military academy school, people get nervous. People with money get nervous. Fans get nervous. Ken Niumatalolo should have gotten the Arizona job, and at the time the head coach was like, or the quarterback who was there at the time, I was like, I ain't going to play for him. I am not doing no triple. The fact that you have, as you mentioned, Willie Fritz's success at Houston, Ken Niumatalolo doing what he's doing in his first season at San Jose State, which is not running the triple option that you run at Navy. I'm hoping that these are opportunities for Jeff Monken to come in and go, you see what these guys are doing when they get away from having to run the triple. He doesn't want to take the military triple and take it to where he's going.
Right.
There may be elements of that, but it's not what they're going to go run.
Right.
And
that
everything
was the big
I've heard
pitch for Kansas. Yeah.
And everything I've heard about Monken, he is a dogged recruiter. That man loves to recruit. And you take him somewhere where he can recruit and have success that is not running the triple, that's the kind of thing that I would love to have. And a man that knows how to run a program with a good culture. Someone's finally going to hire Monken, and they're going to be glad they did, and everyone else is going to be kicking themselves when they've gone through 4 different coaches than they could have had him. So, all right. As we mentioned, West Virginia is also open. They move off Neil Brown. I was wrong. I said for weeks, I thought if they got to bowl eligibility that they would keep him. Now, if you listen to the Picks Pod last week with Chase, we kind of talked about this, the vibes around West Virginia, the vibes around Neil Brown after that win last week. Not great. And then they go to Texas Tech and play the way that they did. And he has been relieved despite reaching another bowl game. I texted Chase to get his thoughts. Again, he shared quite a few last week. If you want to go listen to those, you don't have to listen to the whole podcast. There's timestamps in the show notes. Just go and listen to his thoughts on West Virginia and Neil Brown. But I did text Chase, our good friend, who joins us every week. He said, quote, ultimately, I don't have an issue with it. And I think will be one of the better jobs available. There were some things that went wrong that weren't in Neil Brown's control, but he had a lot of chances to get things moving, and it never really did. I can't really remember a single highlight from the last 6 years. Mind you, they're 2-0 against Virginia Tech, but it's a fair point, which feels pretty damning. I don't have a problem with them wanting to try something new, and I agree. Look, you've been climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing, And I like Neil Brown, and I thought it was a great hire, and I thought it would work out at West Virginia. I really did. But at a certain point, you're 6 seasons in, and it's 6 seasons of mediocrity. So I get why when he's 37 and 35 overall, 25 and 28 in Big 12 play, after 6 years, you've had one season where you won more than 6 games. I get it. I got no problem with it. He's had plenty of opportunities, every opportunity to get things right there in Morgantown. I never want to push for anyone to get fired, but I completely understand why West Virginia has made this move. That is an interesting one to keep an eye on. As Chase mentioned, West Virginia fans are furious that they did not make this move a year earlier, and so Cignetti, who was right in their backyard and is a West Virginia guy, is now the head coach at Indiana and tearing it up at Indiana. And they're going to go. You're not going to get him to leave a Big Ten school with the Big Ten budget to come to West Virginia. So will be very interesting to see what happens in Morgantown. One to definitely keep an eye on. I haven't seen any lists. I have no idea. Go listen to Raspy Voice Kids. Those guys do a great job, and I'll be really interested to hear their thoughts on this decision at West Virginia. The other 2 schools I would say we want to keep an eye on moving forward. I don't know what the hell is going to happen at Oklahoma State, but something has to happen. They allowed 35.58 points per game this season. That's the most in program history, passing 2018's 32.46. So we're talking like 3 points a game worse. I think I saw a tweet that said if you were to spot Oklahoma State 20 points at the beginning of the game, they would still only finish 7 every game this season. They'd still only finish 7-5 this year. You made the comments, Adam, about comments have been made about how Gus has felt about recruiting and NIL and all these things. I just want Gundy to honestly sit down, pour himself a drink, have his wife there, have his boys, have whoever he likes to chat with to kind of get his thoughts and feelings out. Maybe it's by himself. Maybe it's staring at a bull before he headbutts it. I don't know. And ask himself, with all the things that I complain about in college football right now, do I really want to go through a rebuild? Do I really want to replace half of my coaching staff? Because if you come back with status quo, or you try and make as few changes as possible and keep as many of your fishing buddies around as you can, you're not going to sell tickets to this next year because fans are done. And I get it. It's one bad year. It's the worst season since like mid-90s. And when you mention mid-90s with Oklahoma State football, it sends a chill up everybody's spine. I don't know what they're going to do at OSU. I don't know if Gundy's done. I don't know if he's going to make the coaching changes. I don't know if what will be forced upon him. But look, one of my favorite lines of all time: you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. We're in the villain era of Mike Gundy, and I hate to say it.
And I mean, let's be honest. The last few years under Mike Gundy, it's felt like things have been like the wheels have been ready to fall off, and they just haven't. Like things have come together at the right time for them to be in contention for the Big 12 title, or to save a season, get a big win, something like that. But if you looked at the program, like you are, and I know I've asked myself multiple times, like when is it going to go bad enough that all of a sudden the stuff that Mike Gundy does, the whole OAN thing and all of the other kind of off the field stuff is going to become a big enough issue for people? And it felt like that we have been on the cusp of that for quite a while. I mean, I remember when we had the conversation, I think it was 2020, about whether it was going to be Gary Patterson or Mike Gundy who left their school first, because both of them were having some issues. This is the season, I think, where if something is going to happen and someone is going to encourage Mike Gundy to move on, this is going to be the season that's going to happen. The question is, does he want to? And how hard are they going to push to get him to make a decision, whether it's to completely replace his staff and start over, or move on because he just doesn't want to do it?
Yeah, I will say I don't know Oklahoma State's situation as intimately as you do, Phillip, but I will say this. I think where we are in college football in 2024, I think the worst thing you can do right now is fall behind and get left behind as other programs are figuring out how to adjust to this new era of rev share and everything else that's coming with that. And so I think that's the biggest thing to be concerned about is falling behind, because especially in a Big 12, it's wide open, as we talked about, right? This is an opportunity now for if you get a good team together, you have a chance every year potentially in this conference for the next couple of seasons to figure this out. If you fall behind now with everything that's happening, and who knows what's going to happen in 2 years, fellas, right? Like you're hearing all these things about super leagues and conferences and break aparts and splintering. Like I think that was the fear that I had specifically with UCF, which was this is not the time to fall off the radar. And I think that's the thing that you have to be concerned about if you're Oklahoma State or anybody, is if we don't do something, are we in peril of going down that long road, and can we get back? And I think that's the part where you have to decide. I don't know the future, but I know what past has told me. Am I willing to make a move now because I want to get in front of whatever's coming on the road that nobody's smart enough to see yet? And if you do that, if you have sort of the cojones to pull that off, I think that probably is maybe the safer move, even though it sounds weird to say it that way.
Well, I mean, and to your point, that's why Kansas has given Lance Leipold 2 contract extensions already. Like, you want to make sure, and they've, committed so much to the stadium and everything like that, is like, you have to make sure that you are doing what you need to do to stay relevant in college football. And yeah, you're going to have blips, right? One year or another. This just feels like with Gundy, it's like you're wondering every single year what's going to happen this year that makes you wonder about the future direction of the program. And at some point, Gundy's going to hang it up. You want to make sure that he does it in a way that's not going to harm the program long term. And the real question just is, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a very interesting offseason in Stillwater. The other one I want to note is Cincinnati, who is, it has become a perennial successful college football team. I had a lot of people 8 weeks into the season saying, "You going to change your mind about Scott Satterfield?" Nope, because the season wasn't over, and Cincinnati just had a 5-game losing streak to end the season and missed a bowl game for the second straight year under Scott Satterfield. So I'm going to sit here and be like, I don't know that they'll fire him, since this was a guy they wanted. This is the guy the AD hired, But he's going to go into next season, if he's back, on the hottest seat in the Big 12 conference, to me. Not making a bowl game 2 years in a row at a program that is used to winning is not acceptable. Ending the season on a 5-game losing streak in the way that they did is not acceptable. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Cincinnati decides to do this offseason with Satterfield and with their football program, because it's just, 3-9, 5-7. Hey, 5-7 overall, 3-6 in conference play. It's a step up from last year. That is improvement. It is. That improvement better really continue next year, or Cincinnati should be open by the end of the season.
Yeah, well, and I think the thing there too is, because where it stands right now is, I don't know what the problem is, right? Like, why things like that happen or have been happening at the end of the year. If they, at least, even if things don't necessarily go as well as you hope that they do, but you have an idea of why they've gone that way and what you can do to try to fix it, then I think Satterfield sticks around. But if you get to the end of the year again and you're like, I don't know what to say, like, I still have no idea what went wrong with this team where they looked so good at points throughout the year, and at the end of the year you're just like, okay, wait a minute, like, what's going on here? If you don't know the answer of how to fix it, then that leads you to say, okay, well, then let's just tear it all down and start over, and hopefully we get, a good system in together. Because that's the other thing, right, that we found, is that minor changes to try to tweak things, if you don't have an idea of what it is that needs tweaked, those come back to bite you a lot more often than if you just tear everything down and get to a guy that you believe in his vision and you think that he can hit it all moving forward. So, it's a lot easier nowadays to have a huge change like that pay off really quickly, which means I think people are going to be more willing to do that if they don't have a good answer for why things aren't working out right now.
Well, I think, look, and this applies to the school I cover too as well. Like in the group of 5, Cincinnati was a destination. So far in the P4, they're becoming a bit of a stepping stone. And I think that's the challenge is when you were a group of five team, you had Luke Fickell, you were a destination. You were top tier talent. You went to Cincinnati, and you had a chance to compete. You run the risk of becoming that stepping stone school if you don't start doing things to sort of get yourself in that echelon. I think UCF faces that same thing. I think Houston's going through that now a little bit as well, right? So I think if I'm Cincinnati, that's what I'm looking at. I was a destination. I was getting Sauce Gardner. I was getting Myjai Sanders. I was getting Desmond Ridder, who, whatever you think about Desmond Ridder, I was getting those players here. And now they're here and they're gone. They're not even considering they're leaving. And I think that's the part is you have to either show commitment and show sort of what the new Cincinnati is, or you're going to run the risk of that happening. The other thing I would say, Phillip, is I wonder if Brett Brennan would want to arm wrestle Scott Satterfield for hottest seat on the coaching board next year. That may be the other one I'd look at there.
Yeah,
I don't know who wins that arm wrestling, by the way. I mean, Brennan's a pretty put together guy.
I'll take Satterfield. The Brennan hire was always a little bit like, we need someone who's never going to leave us.
Yeah.
Satterfield was a air quotes safe hire because we poached a P5 sitting head coach to come be our head coach. You got a guy whose school wanted him to leave. Like, I'm going to get the Viva the Cats boys on here. And we're going to talk about this at some point here in the next week or so and just get their thoughts on the whole situation. All right. Jamie will be back next week. We'll talk a lot of hoops next week. We got a lot of basketball to get to, but today there's a lot of football to talk about. Very excited to find out where everyone who is going bowling will go bowling. Sorry, Andy. Sorry, Adam. Sorry, me. Hey, you know what? I look forward to just watching the bowl games for fun because I love bowl season, and I need to know who's going to the Pop-Tarts Bowl so I can figure out what brewery we need to talk to about a Pop-Tart and beer pairing like we did last year, and I look forward to it. If it's Iowa State, there's a lot of good options. I'll take any of them. I will. All right. You can find Andy on Twitter at AndyMitz12. Rock Chalk Pod is on there. Andy, have you joined the Blue Sky crew yet?
No, I'm in the process of trying to get stuff put together, but at some point I will. Probably. I'm getting more and more fed up with Twitter, so.
It is time. We're on Blue Sky, and I got to tell you, Blue Sky, like sports on Blue Sky is what sports on Twitter used to be, and it's fun. And all your favorite sports people are over there. Like more and more keep coming over, but it's...
Well, apparently not all of them because I'm not over there yet, so...
Ooh.
All your favorite sports people are already over there, and others will continue to join. Sons of UCF is already over there and active. Yeah, of course you guys are. Of course you guys are. Adam,
we were
of course.
everywhere. Unfortunately, we probably need to be in less places, but we are everywhere.
You got like 40 different people that like work for Sons or affiliated with Sons or do stuff for Sons. You've got it. Let me put it this way. I make that joke. You guys have an absolutely incredible group of UCF diehards that contribute and write and talk and podcast and do so much for you guys. Like it is what you guys have built up over there. Even like partnering with the Pegasus podcast, who does a great job as well. Like you have built this incredible like UCF community of. It's awesome, man. Like you guys have done such a great, I love having you guys the network. I don't say that enough for everybody out there, but like you guys do such a damn good job for UCF.
Thanks, Phillip. I'm almost going to blush here. No, I think the thing we're proudest of actually this basketball season, we're now an official internship location for UCF. So students who are in the communications college intern with us, get actual college credit. So we're going to have 5 new interns starting in January for the spring semester. And I'm their professor, oddly enough. And I am determining these individuals' actual grades to get a degree in college.
Professor
I don't know how we got there.
There it is.
Way, but no,
Professor Eaton. Awesome.
It's exciting. It's a lot of fun. They're hanging out with Trace doing pregame, post-game interviews and standouts with coaches. So it's been a lot of fun. Find anything that you want to look, just find Sons of UCF, Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, sonsofUCF.com. We have a newsletter we're starting this week as well to try to do some new stuff too. So go to Sons of UCF. You'll find everything we do.
If you do not start a Professor Eaton segment somewhere on YouTube or the podcast somewhere, like you're missing this massive opportunity.
It's kind of what I do in Around the Kingdom, but yeah, that's a good call. I need to figure that out.
Here's Professor Eaton with his smart takes on UCF athletics for the week. Adam, always a pleasure, man. You guys do a great job. Of course, follow us everywhere. 5 stars, please. Happy Thanksgiving. Everyone have a good week. We'll make picks this week. I don't know when. I've got I've got family stuff to deal with, so we will have a picks pod for the championship weekend. I don't know when it's going to drop, but it's going to drop, and fingers crossed we can get Parker on, or he really is going to be the Matt Damon joke of the 10-12 podcast. Y'all have a good week. Hey guys, before we go, real quick, don't forget about Charlie Hustle, sponsors here on the 10-12 podcast, and for the entire 10-12 network, they've got everything Big 12 fans want to find under the tree this holiday season. They've got something for everyone, whether you're an Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, UCF, Arizona State, Iowa State, West Virginia fan, whatever Big 12 school you are a fan of, you need to go to charliehustle.com. Pick out what you want. If it's on sale, great. Throw it in the cart. Put in your info. Check out and enjoy it. If not, use our promo code 101215, TEN1215. Gets you 15% off all non-sale items. Again, that's 101215, TEN1215, 15% off all non-sale items. So if you're buying it for you or a family member or a friend, great. If you want to send some ideas to family members and friends, don't forget to mention that promo code so that they can save some money on your Christmas gifts this year. Go to charliehustle.com. Absolutely incredible. Wonderful, vintage, inspired collegiate apparel. Super, 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 super comfortable. I can't emphasize that enough. charliehustle.com. Vintage made fresh.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.